Hey, I'm Josh Fosgreen. Let's talk slap bass. So you learn the technique, you got the basics, you can do your slaps and pops on octaves, but you want to do something a little different. Learning some Victor Wooten stuff is a great way to expand your palette and redefine what you think you can play with the slap technique. So people have been learning Victor's tricks for a long time now. Everybody seems to have caught on to the thumb, hammer, pluck thing. Thumb, hammer, pluck. So that's fun, but the pattern we're going to do today is a little more complex. This is the main pattern Vic uses in Me and My Bass Guitar, and it sounds like this. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to play this basic pattern and also some of the variations that Victor uses on this. And then we'll talk about how to create your own bass lines using this kind of template, which is really cool because you can create these. You get that backbeat in there and you get kind of a drum beat feel along with your slap pattern. So it makes a nice solo bass texture, and you can really change the notes around pretty easily without having to learn a whole new pattern. So let's dive in. All right, so I'll show you the tabs throughout this video as we're talking about stuff, but I've also got these all in PDF format for my patrons over at patreon.com/JoshFosgreen. So here's what this pattern sounds like super slow, and then I'll break it down for you more. Here we go. Even slower. Okay, so what are we looking at here? We've got just a basic thumb slap on the B on the E string, and then pop 1, pop 2 means index pop and then middle pop, which is just a normal pop, and then stick the middle finger in there too for another one. And then hammer on that G sharp, and then here's where the strum comes in. That S means strum, so I'm just strumming down with my fingernails and then strumming back up with the pads of my fingers. So those first 6 hits are thumb, index, middle, hammer, strum down, strum up. So maybe just practice this in 3-note chunks or do those 6. And then just a hammer, and then slap on that same note. It's kind of just a half articulated note. So that those first 2 beats. And now the pattern basically repeats, but you probably can't tell from looking at it because a couple little things change. We're starting on a hammer on beat 3, and then doing the double pluck. The reason it's a hammer instead of a thumb is because we just used the thumb on the of 2. So from beat 3, hammer, and then pop, pop, hammer, strum, strum back up, hammer, and that's the pattern. It's going to take a really long time for you to speed this up to tempo if you're just learning it. I remember when I first got my Victor Wooten transcription book and I was working on stuff like this, and I was just doing it so slow that I was like, is this really... Are these really the notes? Because this doesn't sound like anything right now. It just sounds like boop, fleet, what? But really, it'll sound like something if you practice a lot. If you don't practice a lot, it'll never sound like anything. So there's your incentive. One last tip I'll give you on this pattern with the pops is don't worry about them coming out super snappy like if you were playing. You know, more traditional slap funky stuff where you want those pops to really pop out. These can almost just be little ploop, 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 ploop. They don't have to go snap quite as hard. So you can do this pretty soft versus having the pops more poppy. It kind of works either way. Okay, I'm going to talk you through a few variations on this pattern that are a mix of stuff I've seen Victor do directly and just stuff that I tend to do with this pattern, which I think is probably all stolen from Victor, but I don't want to blame him if any of these variations aren't cool. I'm not sure they're all 100% stolen from Victor. But anyway, before we get there, I want to talk about how to create your own bass lines once you learn this pattern. you can leverage this pattern for a lot of bass lines. All you have to do is change the notes, and you can keep all the pops the same, all the thumbs, all the hammers, all the strums, except instead of doing this, instead of doing that, you do some other notes. So basically, if you look at all the notes in the tab that are actual note heads, that aren't X's for ghost notes or strums, those are the notes that we need to shift. So there's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's only 6 notes in the bar because we're doing 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Subdivision of the 16ths in the bar. So let's see, what if we did a... Or what if I do something in another key? So I just made all that up, but did I really make it up? No, I just learned this Victor Wooten pattern, and then I stuck some different notes on it from the E minor scale, but it sounds cool, right? And then I cheated at the end. But yeah, so that's my invitation to you, is pick 6 notes, practice the hammering on part, and then put it all together, and you can make up a bunch of cool bass lines that are very different than your usual. Like slap funk, octave-y, slap pop, slap lines. Right? Totally different vibe. Sorry, wrong pattern. Then super different thing, even though it's the same technique. Okay, let's look at some variations on this pattern, which again, you could turn into your own bass lines through that same avenue we were just talking about. Okay, so what we're changing here is now instead of upward strums, we're just going to do a pop with the index. So we'll go down with the fingernails on however many strings, and then just come up with the index pop on the G string. So it sounds basically the same, it's just a slightly different way you can execute this if it works better for your technique. I wouldn't say you need to learn both of these ways, it's just a way you can kind of make it your own thing if you don't want to force yourself into the exact pattern that we talked about at the beginning. Okay, variation 2, we're going to mix up the rhythm a little bit. We're going to stick an 8th note on the and of 2 and then do 16ths at the end of the bar, which makes a cool little thing happen that I'll show you in a sec. So we go thumb, pluck, pluck, hammer, strum, strum, hammer, hold, and then hammer, pluck, pluck, hammer, strum, strum, hammer, thumb, and then either slide or hammer to get to the B again on the repeat, because Victor typically wouldn't do a quick hammer thumb thumb there on the 16th pulse. He likes to be a little slicker than that and bounce around between different rudiments of the technique rather than force the thumb to go super fast in general. So that means on that last beat we go strum, strum, hammer, thumb, and then hammer or slide, and then continue as normal, pluck, pluck. So that can be a cool variation to throw in the mix, and I bet that if you listen to any given live version of Victor playing this, he's going to throw in this kind of variation pretty often. Okay, variation 3 is probably the most different of all of them. We've got more rhythm tweaks. We're starting on an 8th note instead of 2 16ths, and then ending on an 8th note again, like at the beginning. And the main thing we're changing here is we're getting rid of the strumming element. So it's all going to be thumbs, hammers, pops, and double pops. So there's less techniques involved total. So now we got thumb for an 8th note, pop, hammer, thumb, pop, taking the place of the strum there, right? Normally we would go strum, strum, now we're going thumb, pop. And then hammer, thumb, and then hammer, pop, pop, hammer, thump, pop, hammer. So if I'll do my best to play back to back the original version and then this version, swapping the strums for the thumbs and pops, you can hear the different vibe we get. So we'll start with the strums. So those last two are with the thumbs and pops. You can hear the texture is a little bit more monotonous. It stays in the slap feeling. The strums really bring a different element in and gives you that feeling of a distinct backbeat that kind of stands out from the texture of the other thumps and pops. And these are both great patterns. And again, you can turn this into your own bass line just by changing the notes. I'll just make something up. Thank you for sticking around. Please like and subscribe if you care to do that. If you don't care to do that, that's fine too. I still appreciate you being here. And if you support me on Patreon, you'll get some cool bonuses for this video. You can get a PDF of all the variations we talked about. You'll also get a bonus video where I teach you how to do this. That weird crazy thing that Victor does in that tune. So I'll show you that pattern in the bonus video if you're a patron. If not, thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time.